All right, we're about 1 minute after the hour, so we're going to get started. Thanks everybody for joining us live today. We are thrilled to have Charles and Cary from Truist joining us today to talk about an ITSM use case that they've automated via VividCharts for ServiceNow. These guys have a lot to tell you about why they chose this report, why it's been super impactful for the business, not just from getting a time back perspective, but how they were able to get the report disseminated to thousands of people, how they've saved a ton of time doing this. And yeah, as you can see here, these are very smart, very important gentlemen, and they're going to give you a great presentation today. We're just so thrilled to have them. All right, Cary and Charles, I'm going to hand it over to you guys.
Thank you, Ashley. We are thrilled to be here to share with you this morning about our experience with VividCharts. Wanted to start off first just a little bit about Charles and I. We are in an organization called Service Transition within our technology division at Truist, and so we work with governance frameworks and compliance processes around those frameworks, and also a lot of reporting and analytics, metrics reporting. So we're really happy to be here to share with you how we've leveraged VividCharts in our operation. So wanted to just give you a few tidbits about Truist and the background as to how we came into using VividCharts. So Truist, many of you might be familiar with, it was formed in 2019 between a merger with SunTrust and BB&T banks. We're now the 8th largest U.S. financial institution. And our first couple of years in the merger process, we focused on merging and integrating applications. The last 2 years, we've been focused on maturing our governance processes, and we've chosen ServiceNow to host the majority of those governance processes. So ServiceNow is a really big part of our operation. So as we started down that journey, our first governance model that we started working on in ServiceNow was building out a software delivery lifecycle framework, and with governance controls and activities, all managed with workflows in a custom application within the strategic portfolio management module in ServiceNow. So at Truist, we call SDLC TDLC for Technology Delivery Lifecycle, because it includes both hardware and software. So we've taken liberties on that. So if you ever refer to TDLC instead of SDLC, you'll know why. So we built out this TDLC and release governance process. It's custom map, and it took us about 18 months to really build the whole thing out, and it went through a very rapid iterative development approach. And so we ended up with a set of complex workflows, tables that presented some real challenges for us when it came to reporting. And we were unable to use out-of-box capabilities in ServiceNow, and we'll talk about why that was. So we initially had to extract all that data from ServiceNow, bring it into Excel, and do all of our metrics and compliance reporting within the Excel tool. That, of course, is very cumbersome. As you can see on these stats here, it takes us 32 hours at the beginning of each month to prepare that report. That's 32 man hours across the first 5 business days of the month, because we have to publish on the 5th business day. So there's a lot of work that goes into pulling that data out and doing validations and making sure everything ticks and ties across 42 separate tabs in a worksheet or a workbook. And there's about 25 supporting tabs that have pivot tables, interconnecting tables, that brings all that data together for what we present to our leaders and to our delivery team members across the enterprise. It's about 2,000 people that leverage our compliance reporting and metrics reporting. So that was the challenge that we had facing us, is we needed to get away from that Excel, and we got introduced to VividCharts. Interestingly, there was we hired a guy from VividCharts on our service transition team, Ryan Klein, who one day we were in Charlotte. having a strategy session, and we're talking about some of our reporting challenges. And he just turns to me and he turns his little computer screen and he goes, "Hey, have you ever seen this?" And he was showing me the VividCharts website and some of the examples that they showed out there. And I just took one look, and I all of a sudden my eyes just went straight to that, going, "Hey, that's exactly what we need." And from that point on, about a few months later, we were engaged in some contract negotiations and got some VividCharts into our organization. And we've been spending most of this year migrating our compliance reporting from those Excel spreadsheets into VividCharts. And so, as part of that process, we ran into some challenges, and so we're going to talk to you about how we've been able to overcome those challenges. Primarily, the biggest challenge that we had was where, with some of the multiple tables, complex relationships between those tables, when we tried to join those tables together to bring that data together for our reporting, we tried using the ServiceNow database view tool. We got thousands of duplicate records. We met with our senior architect. We met with our senior lead over our performance analytics area. We even pulled in support from our ServiceNow team. Nobody could figure out a solution to it natively in ServiceNow. And that was due to the way that the custom tables were architected. We do have a long-term plan to re-architect those so that we can do better reporting out of them. But that's at least a year and a half down the road. So we needed a solution now, and VividCharts gave us that. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles. He's going to talk to you about, Charles is my reporting and analytics lead, and he's going to talk to you about the solution that we leverage within VividCharts. Charles?
Very good. Thank you, Cary. Hey, just to continue with where Cary was starting with this, one of the things that we looked at, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these bullet points here because we really are going to talk about it in more detail in the next two slides, but just at a high level, what we were able to leverage was that ability to customize some of the more commonly occurring chart types, the ones that VividCharts has opened up to customization using JavaScript, and that allowed us now to start moving our reporting solution off of that Excel using downloaded ServiceNow reports and really build it out on our Truist ServiceNow platform so that those reports would be available on demand. And that is to us as a key selling point. With the Excel reports, we were doing things monthly. We would wait till the close of the month, within the first 5 business days, download all of these files from Excel and then run them through, from ServiceNow, and then run them through Excel. Create all the pivot tables, do all the, do these updates, and a very time-consuming, very laborious process. And because of that, the data is always a month behind. It's not available on demand to the people who really need it, which would be our delivery team members, our leadership across our different areas within enterprise technology that need to know how their teams are performing as they're delivering their changes for their software delivery cycle into our production. So we'll get into this in the next couple of slides a little bit more about this. So Cary, if you want to go on to the next slide here. So this is a little snippet that we took just to illustrate that problem that we were facing. The key on here is that this is 3 different tables at the top that are an integral part of our process. We have this managed release process to deliver technology change across the organization. And to do that, we have to touch upon data from what we call our business application request table, data from our documentation task table. And then what's particularly interesting, this first MVP that we did, this first release was around our cyber release exceptions. And we have this table. There's a lot of complexity in the relationships between these tables. And that's what caused, what Cary described with the thousands and thousands of duplicate records here. We tried to do it, with just a table, creating the database view, creating the joins between the tables. And that just simply didn't work. Now, long term, we are going to be working on the architect of this model and make some corrections to this, but those are coming down the road. But we had to come up with an immediate solution. We had to move away from the Excel reporting. Excel reporting, as most of you know, is fragile. If there's any kind of a change in the data that we get from ServiceNow, we would have to go back through, fix our pivot tables. If we had organizational changes, we would have to fix our pivot tables. So it really creates a lot of maintenance too, if things change. So, we knew that we couldn't do it with out-of-the-box ServiceNow reporting. So that's when we started getting into then using the VividCharts and really examining what we could do using JavaScripting to overcome these challenges that we had here. Let's see here. Cary, if we can go into the next slide here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what we did then from a solution standpoint. Again, as I showed in the last slide, we had complex relationships. This is just a simplified version of that. What I want to point out in this is that we were able to solution this without having to create like an intermediary table. So we had these multiple ServiceNow tables. There's complex relationships between them, the one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one. And what we did was that with JavaScripting, we were able to then pull that data down and aggregate it using the scripting. And once we have that data aggregated, and whether it's by time period, by organization within our enterprise technology organization, we were then able to populate that to a list table. And in essence, what we did was that by being able to summarize that data, creating these aggregations, we essentially made our list table into a pivot chart to create the summaries. But we did it without having to go through and create like intermediary tables. We didn't have to create database views, within ServiceNow. We're simply able to use our JavaScripting to pull that data in. Once we had it in a list table, now we're able to put together calculated columns, which is the functionality out of the box, with VividCharts. We've been able to create calculated list columns. And in that way, we could then start calculating our metrics. And for this particular first report that we did around our cyber release exceptions, we have two main key metrics that we have to look at. One of them is what's our approval rate of these cyber release exception requests, and then the other one's what's our reject rate on that. But to do that, we had to take data from 3 different tables in ServiceNow to be able to get that calculation. Cary, is there anything you want to add to I know I kind of went through that pretty fast. So is there anything you want to add to what I've described in these last 2 slides?
Yeah, you addressed that really well, Charles. The only thing I would add is, it's the power that VividCharts has with being able to leverage JavaScript is really, the key here. Being able to overcome, the complex relationships natively in ServiceNow. Bringing your data in, to VividCharts, and leveraging that capability. That's what really gave us the big lift to leverage this. We wanted to show you now. The one thing is we can't show you live data on these reports due to the sensitive nature of them, but we did want to share a snippet of them with you. I'm going to pop out of the presentation here and show you just kind of conceptually what this looks like. So this is just a snapshot on a landing page in ServiceNow where we can click on this image and it'll take us to the actual VividChart report. But you can, Charles, you want to talk through how we got data in across these columns and calculated that, because that correlates to the previous slide you had.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'd like to point out within this, there's actually several nice things about what we did here. Before I get into details of the columns, just sort of as a general overview, this particular cyber release exception report actually replaces a ServiceNow dashboard that we had for cyber release exceptions. And it was really around, the request for these exceptions, showing how many is in progress and so on. However, that was off of one table, our authorizations table, and it was difficult to bring in the complete picture. So there was actually a certain component that we were not able to bring into that. And that would be like the overall picture of how many cyber deliverables are in our process, because again, these are requests for exceptions to those, along with from a third table. So we had that dashboard. We also had the Excel report, which is where we did that, bringing all of those different pieces together. So we were actually able to not only turn off the Excel report, but we're also able to turn off a ServiceNow dashboard that was a good starting point, but was incomplete. So within what we built here, we're showing you the first tab, but we also took advantage of the fact that we could have multiple slides in our VividCharts, output or dashboard, so to speak. We have them showing us tabs across the top. So we showed not only the main table here, but we have other tabs in there that has like trend graphs on it. It has more detail around the individual requests and stuff like that. So like more detailed list tables. But within this, the way we have this organized is that the main table where Cary has his hand over right now, that shows a breakdown by organization within enterprise technology. We have like lines of business, that supports, the different business areas within Truist. And within that, the first column of data is pulling in from our documentation task table. Here's a count of all the cyber deliverables, that are coming in. Then the second column is how many tasks that we have in our business application request table that are related to a cyber deliverable. We have one that we actually do pre-release, and we're bringing that in. Then the third column actually adds the first two columns together, because now here's our total population. We have X number of doc tasks, we have X number of business application request tasks, add them together, and we have our total. So then we go into the next column over, which is now getting a count from a third table, saying, well, here's how many requests we have for an exception to the cyber deliverables that was approved. And then the column next to that is now showing the calculation. What percent of that total number of cyber deliverables do we have an approved exception for? And then the next column after that is our reject count. How many of those requests were rejected? And correspondingly, what's that percent reject rate? We have that. We also have some single scores off to the far left, which is summarized at this overall level, showing here's in total what it is. So, it's like the total number approved, what percent of that, total rejected, a little bit of a view into what's in progress as well at the bottom of that. So it was really nice being able to pull everything together into one view, into one Vivid chart, and dashboard here, versus having to have everything on like a dashboard, having one piece of it, having Excel reports that showed other components, pulling it all together. Now we have it all in one dashboard, and this is live in production now. We actually rolled this out a few months ago, and we've been testing it, and we actually used the results for the first time for our August compliance reporting package that we just put together and published, and we were able to turn off that part of it in the Excel report, all the pivot tables. I think it was probably about 5 or 6 tabs that we're able to turn off and simply replace it with the VividCharts. And we do the download to PowerPoint, and then we take the screenshots from that, and we put that into our into the compliance report that we publish. So we're still having to publish monthly, but this dashboard is now available to all of our users on demand. They can go and look at it. Some of the other things to point out in this, which is really nice, even though we had to heavily customize that cyber release dashboard, particularly that list chart, we're still able to create all the appropriate filters for it. Our users can filter it for their particular organization within enterprise technology, that line of business that they're under. We can filter by time period. We can filter for a very specific release. And again, it's all around our managed release process. You want to see the details on that. So it still allows us a lot of flexibility and a much better customer experience, because trying to filter in Excel, yeah, you can set it up and all that, but it is not as user-friendly as what we've got or what we can do here within VividCharts. So I'm going to pause there. Cary, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, thanks, Charles. All right. So we wanted to provide you with a view of the overall value that we received. We right now have the rest of our compliance reports. We've moved it into production a couple of weeks ago, and we're doing data validation on production data. So we're expecting at the end of this month that it will be fully rolled out. But this is the value that we realize. I'm going to start on the right-hand side, and then I'll go left. But the real kicker on our side is that we're reducing our time to produce the reports from 32 hours a month down to 2. That might seem you might think that it should be lower, right? Hey, you should just be able to click a button, do a filter and print your reports, and that's true. But we do need some time to do some data validation and make sure that there's no records that might be, have some error conditions or, and make sure our data is clean and get those cleaned up. So now we'll be able to use that 5 days before we publish them to the monthly snapshot. We can actually use that time to make sure that our data is valid in ServiceNow. And once we make sure that that's valid, then the reports will be clean. We can publish them. So we will have a couple of hours of work just to get those out the door. But we've reduced the amount of workload in the Excel spreadsheets. Instead of 42 separate tabs in a spreadsheet with 25 supporting tabs, we'll have about 30 total tabs across a couple different dashboards and no supporting tabs. So it really reduces the amount of time to produce them, and also consolidates a lot of the reports into a more cohesive view for our users. So you get an enhanced user experience. We're able to provide, in some of the reports, we can even provide some drill down, where if you want to look at specific counts of records, you can click on that and it'll open up the list of those records in ServiceNow. That's a really great feature, because then we don't have to, in our Excel, we would have to extract those and provide an extra tab, right? Well, now users can click on that field where we have a count of records of any type, and it opens up that ServiceNow list automatically. Our data integrity is better, because now the data is not being extracted. We're getting live data as it is in ServiceNow, the source of truth. The one interesting thing that is coming out of this migration, and as we start to use VividCharts more and it's more real time, is it gives us a lot of early indicators on some data records that might have some wrong indicators on them for some reason, and we can go address those much quicker. And if we can identify those data and even sometimes process changes, we can get those addressed very quickly, and that reconciles the data, and we don't have to do any manual adjustments in our Excel worksheets, which we'd rather not do. But it kind of changed the dynamic on how we do our validation and what we do with that validation and how we correct the data. And so the custom scripting gave us the ability to create these custom solutions, and reduce the manual efforts. So overall, really great experience. And we have, on our roadmap, we've actually identified a number of other use cases where we can leverage VividCharts, and also where we've got a lot of complex relationships across many tables that they're having the same issues as we had with our cyber release exception dashboard. They're getting like a lot of duplicate records. And so as we're building out a governance model around our IT asset management processes, we're going to leverage VividCharts for that as well. In fact, VividCharts has actually become a really go-to product, a go-to tool for within our organization. We have a number of different areas using it because of the flexibility of it and the good presentation. We're even expanding our report and development team as a result, because our demand has grown as people have learned about what we can do with VividCharts. Our demand's picking up. We're having to bring in more folks to address that demand. So it's a good thing. We're getting a lot of traction and getting better reporting. And our leaders and our delivery team members are actually excited and thrilled about it because it gives them a better user interface. So we're excited to use it more and encourage you all to leverage VividCharts in the same way. So.
And Cary, if I could add, just another like final comment for me on this whole thing, part of what I've realized is that with way we're using VividCharts now, it's allowed us to take a step back, and we've done things like created like design guidelines so that we can make sure we have consistency around our reporting. So, and this is being promoted not only what we're doing within our immediate team, but across our organization. Cary mentioned we're part of a team called Service Transition. So we're promoting the use of these design guidelines so that as we build reporting, we're introducing a very consistent look and feel versus the ad hoc looks that would come up when we're doing Excel reporting. And by moving away from that, we're also introducing more of a design process so that we're rationalizing what we're doing, how we're presenting the data, thinking about it from an end user perspective versus simply, hey, let's just dump some data out of ServiceNow and produce a quick and dirty Excel report that somehow becomes every month, here's what we're producing, without, really going through a design. So I think that's some of the other advantages, of what we're doing with VividCharts now, that we're stepping back and thinking about how we design our reporting and how we present it to our end users. And really, at the end of the day, it's all about getting people to take action on what they do in their business day to day. So in this case, our delivery teams, and giving them the knowledge they need to make the right decisions or course corrections as they're going through their release by having really sound reporting.
Great. Thanks, Charles. All right. Ashley, I'll turn it over to you. I think we might have some questions. I know you've got a couple of other slides in here, but thank you for having us today, and we're happy to address any questions.
Thanks, Cary. Thanks, Charles. Love hearing you guys talk about your use case. And I'm just really happy that the path to value, you guys have realized it already, right? So just a reminder to the audience, drop some questions in the comments if you've got them. We'll get to them in a couple slides, just a couple housekeeping things at the end here. Briefly mentioned was, trying to calculate KPIs across data tables in ServiceNow. We know this has been a pain point. There have been ways to do this with VividCharts before our newest product called VividSheets, but VividSheets is now available on the ServiceNow store, free to download, 10 sheets for free. There's no reason not to get in and try it. It comes preloaded with some common formulas, but this is our attempt to stop the unnecessary exporting of data to Excel. We want to help keep, your data in platform, and then eventually pipe these types of things into data visualizations and reporting that you need to show stakeholders all of the time. So this is just another piece of automation that we're offering. And again, free to try, go download it today. We're still in the early stages of adding features and functionality, and are loving all of the feedback we're getting from the field and our customers. So check that out. I'll take the next slide, Cary. Just some other ways to follow up with us. I've already mentioned VividSheets. Obviously, feel free to schedule a demo with us post this call. We love taking discovery calls and just understanding where your pain points are and the use cases you have today that we could potentially help you with. We also have a full suite of services offerings to help with anything from platform analytics migration, just reporting strategy in general. You heard Charles talk about the importance of having standardized SOPs for your reporting. And if you're kind of lost on how to set all of that up, or you just need a second set of eyes, we're happy to help with all of that stuff. So reach out to us if you're ready to have a conversation. We'd love to talk to you. In addition, we have an option to see some real live examples in ServiceNow of some of our best use cases from the past. We've kind of rebuilt them in a ServiceNow instance so you guys can sign up and take a look at those things live directly in ServiceNow. I think we're jumping into questions now, if I'm right. The first one I have for you guys, and you guys did such a good job of touching on this already, but if we really center back to, why is this report specifically so important to Truist? Why was this the one you chose to kind of get started with?
Well, we chose this because, as I said at the start, this was our first governance framework that we built out in ServiceNow, and it touches every process from, for every change that goes into production has to go through this, and there's a lot of compliance and a lot of processes that are part of that, and so it really drives delivery for our organization. So that's why this was the first one that we addressed. It was the first framework, and as we're building out additional frameworks, we'll start using it for that. So it really was the fact that we brought this framework into ServiceNow and leveraged ServiceNow that drove that need. But then once everybody started recognizing the value, we've had other areas with so for example, problem management and issue management. They've leveraged VividCharts as well. Our testing organization is actually beginning to leverage VividCharts. So we've got a number of our areas that have started doing this. This was a big lift for us because it was so many reports that we had to produce around so many different metrics. And because of the massive amount of work, that's what really drove us to pick this one first as our major release.
Yeah, and if I could add to that too, as Cary said, this is framework, but out of this report that we have, we actually was a nice proof of concept as well for us. We took that report, broke it up into really 4 main pieces that we had to develop, knowing that if we could solve for the first one, then the rest of them will just follow right along. We'd be able to solve for the rest. So that's why, we highlighted, one specific example, that sub-release exceptions. That was our first build out of the 4 planned builds. And we knew that if we could solve that one, then we would be able to solve for the rest. So it also served as a test bed for us, showing that, yes, we can demonstrate value with one piece of it and then be able to quickly turn around and go to the next one. So we've already completed our second one after that one, and we're in validation of that now. And we're already in progress with our third one. So before the end of the year is going to be out, we're going to have everything completely done now in VividCharts. And so taking that stepping stone approach to demonstrate value quickly, but also serve to prove that, yes, we can do it and we can overcome those table challenges that we had with the out-of-the-box reporting.
Yeah, and I love this idea of choosing a really complex use case that touches a lot of stakeholders first and foremost, because to your point, I think it proves the value right out of the gate. It's certainly not the approach that a lot of people take. They prefer to walk before they run, but you guys were able to deliver value to so many people all at once and take all of that work off your plate. I think it was a great decision on your part. Kind of an extension of that, why this report is important to delivery team members and leaders. What kind of decisions or actions are people taking based on what the report is showing? Is that something you guys could share?
Well, yeah. Well, these are compliance reports, and so a lot of the actions that come out of these reports are for projects that have releases that where their scores were out of appetite. And so they've got some action items to do. So we have monthly reviews with all of our delivery teams, and we review these results in a very large forum with delivery leaders and key stakeholders. You have a lot of release train engineers, scrum masters, project managers, delivery managers who are in attendance at that forum, and we'll walk through the summary results, and we'll call out where there's out of appetite conditions. Out of appetite means that they're underneath the threshold of our risk appetite. And so there's actions that our delivery teams have to take monthly. We actually have compliance built into our process where they have to remediate before they actually go to production. But we calculate their scores on how well they did to get to the end result. So we'll have like compliance failures where they have to, let's say they've got 20 different items that they've got to deliver on. And so, if they have on any one given item, if they submit it and we have an inline compliance process that either passes or fails it. If they fail multiple times, that's going to bring their compliance score down. Even though the process requires them to be 100% remediated, before they go to production, they're still held accountable for all of the failed attempts for them to get through, because that can be an indicator of quality. And of other processes that might have some gaps in them that might need to be addressed. So we call those things out and help teams to direct them to where they need to hone in to have a better experience in their processes to deliver to our production environments.
Yeah. And if I could add to, what Cary says, this reporting, it kind of reveals, and again, I'm an industrial engineer. So my thinking is, from a process perspective. And I think about things like such as, what Cary described also uncovers a hidden factory, which is the rework that occurs. So if the delivery teams aren't getting it right the first time, they have to go back and they have to spend time to fix what they should have done right to begin with, and that's what the kind of what we're encouraging. We want the delivery teams to learn, and they need to improve so that if they can consistently deliver correctly the first time around, then they don't have to spend any effort or time doing rework. They're eliminating their rework. So it makes the processes more efficient for the delivery teams. And at the end of the day, it frees up those resources for other value-added work they need to do because they're not doing rework.
Yeah, I think time savings floats to the top a lot. We know how valuable reporting is in an organization as large as yours, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a million other things that any report builder could be doing, right? Outside of building that same report every month.
Right.
So that's definitely a thread we see a lot. And we're thrilled that you guys got so much time back again on this really complex use case. We had a question about security. Was there anything special that had to be considered with VividCharts around access and security, or does it leverage the platform security framework? I can answer this, but I'll let you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, with the security, we're just leveraging, the accesses that are built into our ServiceNow. So our users, to view the reports directly in VividCharts have to be ServiceNow users and stuff. We do give them only read-only access. So the actual, like, if they wanted to go and make a change in our reports, they would not be able to. They don't have like the build role or an admin role, within VividCharts. So, but the nice thing about that is that we are able to make that freely available for our ServiceNow community to view the reports without having to, do anything special from an access standpoint.
And that's a key point too, because it's good to have those defined roles for your developers of VividCharts and versus your users. But one of the cool things is, when we tried to do some things with performance analytics, and display those, we had some limitations where some people couldn't access that because they didn't have a certain license. And as we started looking at the number of people that had to access our reporting, it was like licensing becomes an issue within ServiceNow. And so with VividCharts, you don't need any additional ServiceNow licenses. As long as you're a ServiceNow user, it's like you can access these reports. So there's security on the back end from the development standpoint, but then you can allow any user to come in, and obviously within your own organizations you can control that if you need to, right? But when you have reports that a large number of people need to view, even at an enterprise level, it makes it easy because you don't have to deal with ServiceNow license issues.
Yeah. And it's a level of security that we just simply don't have with the Excel reports, because once we distribute an Excel report, even though we password protect it, there's ways of getting around that. If somebody could change a number inadvertently and then question our results, we have no control over that versus saying, well, here's our source, here's what we did in Excel, and be able to navigate that. But with now going to VividCharts, we have that extra layer of security that they cannot change the underlying data, because the underlying, we're directly from the source of truth, right? Which is the ServiceNow tables. We're removing that extra layer of Excel because Excel can be changed.
Yep.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Charles. We often talk about lack of data security / integrity the second it leaves the platform. And I think sometimes it can be spun like there are, people looking to change the data to their own advantage, but it's not that, right? It's just the more steps you have, the more human steps you have, the further you get away from the source of truth, the more danger there is that something could change or the logic could be faulty or just human error, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're obviously huge believers of keeping it in ServiceNow, and to your point, being able to leverage all the security that already comes with the platform, which is great. Were there any unexpected benefits from this reporting, like more executive buy-in, better peer communication, budget validation, like any other soft benefits you guys can think of?
Cary, all yours on that one.
Yeah, so it is bringing more visibility. It's like I'll attend some senior leadership meetings where there's some people on our team who will call out and say like, "Hey, why don't you get that in VividCharts, because that looks that it'll make much better presentation." And everybody points their finger over at me and like, "Hey, go talk to Cary. He'll make he and his team will go make that happen." So that's a really good good benefit. It's like we're getting visibility. People are seeing the value that is coming to this, or that we get out of this. But again, it's I mentioned earlier, one of the key values we got was the change in perspective. When we were doing Excel and we saw, hey, we got some records that maybe they shouldn't be in this month's report, and some changes have to happen in ServiceNow. Let's not wait for those changes. We'll just adjust the Excel reports, right? But then the day we publish it, they come out and they say, oh, well, it really now needs to be included. That's not a best practice to do your reporting that way. And what VividCharts then changed our perspective on that. And it's like, hey, we need to go talk to this process area, and we need to have them change their process so that they don't have these error conditions that would occasionally creep up in some of the reporting. So it's exposing where we may have some process gaps, because the data is the data in ServiceNow. You can't like manually adjust it. It's like you got to deal with it and go fix it at the source where it needs to be fixed. So that's a huge benefit for us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's the last question we have for you guys today, but it was a really great session, you all. I just really appreciate you guys being willing to come on and talk about this. I'm so excited that you've gotten all of this value already out of the product. I think that, you all are going to continue to see success with more use cases, and we're really excited to help you all with that.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for having us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And thanks to everybody on the call. We appreciate you sticking around. We'll be sending out the recording and some additional materials, so keep an eye on your inbox. And yeah, hope everybody has a good rest of their Thursday. Thanks, everybody.